All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. And we are going to start with the pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first thing on the agenda is to amend the agenda. Do I have any?
I actually do.
You do, Tom?
We got some paperwork in the other day related to, we have a tax anticipation note. And for reasons I can go into later, it was supposed to go through June 30th as they always do, but it is only through April 1st. So we have to file an extension and I need the board to vote to do that and sign some paperwork. So tax anticipation note extension. And that can go at the bottom of new business.
That's what I was just going to ask. So that's, so I think I need a motion.
Sure.
Make a motion. And I'll second that. Emma, how do you vote? Aye.
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 And Ryan?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to add tax anticipate extension to the end of new business. We are now going to approve the previous minutes for February 26th, March 7th, and March 19th.
I'll make a motion to approve those 3 minutes.
I second. All right. Do we have a discussion?
I wasn't on the board for the February 20th.
For the first, the first one, okay. So Ryan, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Is this for the last two, or you just put them all together, the motion? So,
I think it's for all of them.
okay. I wasn't on February 26th, but okay. Aye.
All right, so the previous minutes have passed. Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Right up. Hello.
Aye.
Shannon Smith, Windsor resident. And Tom, I was wondering if you could speak to what the process, because this is your last year here, or your contract ends next
June of
year?
26.
Of 26. So I was wondering if you could speak to what that process looks like in regards to the current documentation for Windsor, as well as maybe prior experiences. Like what could you let us, the town, know and the select board know about what that process might look like?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
I get to pick me. No. No? Oh, darn. Okay.
Ryan.
So, all right.
Want
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't want that. There is no process. It's the decision of the select board. That's like, there was some discussion the other night about the process for the chief versus the process for the town manager. The process for all employees is outlined in the charter, but the process for the select board, town manager is an appointment by the select board. And much like any hiring process, there's no best way. And I can, and I probably will in the months ahead, give some examples, but unfortunately, many Upper Valley towns over the last few years have gone through a revolving door of town managers. And there are examples in all of those towns where they've had some form of public forum. What do you want? This is what we want to do, this kind of thing. Search committee that includes the select board and residents from the community. That process is what was done, as I understand it, when I got hired. I know that there was a committee that was formed that reviewed things.
Can I ask what year you were hired?
2011. And I forget, I was going to go back and look at this at some point. I will. Maybe MRI, a consulting firm, was involved in the search. They may have put it together. But, I'll pick Claremont is a relatively recent example. They had a long-serving town manager, Guy Santagate, who I guess was there 15 or 16 years, and he gave plenty of notice and he was going to retire. And they went through this big public process and they hired somebody. The person didn't last a year.
Mhm.
So they hired an interim manager. That fellow was there for several months. They hired a second manager through a similar process. That person didn't make it 2 years. They went to another interim town manager, and they ended up hiring Yoshi Mantel, who is the current town manager. And actually, in that particular instance, the mayor of Claremont reached out to Yoshi, who had been employed by Brattleboro only for a few months after he was let go after this long process. But the mayor reached out to Yoshi and asked him if he'd be interested, and Yoshi has been there for several years now. So there certainly are examples where the typical community involved search works out well. There's also examples where a very limited search works out poorly,
Mhm.
but there isn't the solution.
Yeah.
There are national searches that work out well. There aren't, but I can tell you Brattleboro, Claremont, Hanover, Woodstock, Norwich, Hartford, Bellows Falls are all towns that went through multiple town managers in a short amount of time since, say, 2019. Hartford, for example, has had 5 town managers since 2020,
Mhm.
including 2 interim. So my intention is to bring some of that experience that I've seen to the public discussion while the process is being made. Not to say there's a right way and a wrong way, but maybe reach out to some of these communities that have done it. And I've been forwarding the board current searches. Swansea, New Hampshire is currently going through a search. When I saw that, I said, here, watch this,
Yeah.
see what happens. There was another one I just sent the board to.
You said Hartford, that you've already covered that one.
Oh, and Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Their town manager recently accepted a job in southern New Hampshire. So these are happening now. It's current market conditions. Take a look, see how the process works out.
Okay. Thank you very
Mhm.
much. I appreciate it. Are there any more?
Sorry. I was curious about, do we know who owns or who is, I live on Route 5, and along Route 5, there's a steep bank with a lot of, trees along. There, as Vermont has gotten wetter, there has been, a lot of trees falling over power lines, taking the power out along Route 5. And I know it's a state highway. I was wondering if the state owns like the stretch of trees or what the deal is with that, because there's also, I have a friend who had a tree fall like on his dad's car as he was driving on Route 5, and it's just happening more and more. And I just didn't know if that was a state thing or a town thing. I don't know if you could speak to that.
It's a state thing. The town is responsible for what they call the urban compact, which roughly speaking is right before you get the Price Chopper on the north side and right on the other side of the bridge by the American Precision Museum. So that whole stretch is state. And after that particular incident, and I think there was at least one, if not 2 other incidences where trees in that general area fell, the state came out and cut down some additional trees.
Okay.
So I haven't been made aware of any substantial work beyond that. I get similar calls, out in the Narrows on 44 going to West Windsor, where there are banks with trees hanging over the sides.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to speak to any kind of expertise on this because I don't have it, but there's a concern about overcutting, which then undermines the slope. We have this wall up here that kind of happened to wherever that is. I don't know. I get turned around. Yeah, it's over there. Where it takes a long time for the roots to decay and all that kind of stuff, but I can reach out to the District 4 folks to see if they have plans.
Okay, yeah, for the dead trees especially, or things that look like they're on the way out, might be great to get on that.
Sure.
Thank you, Maura. Do we have any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Under new business,
Ethan.
Ethan.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for making space. Hi everyone. I hope you're doing well. Apologies I couldn't be there in person tonight. I wanted to just follow up on and Tom, thank you for going through kind of what the town manager process looks like. I just wanted to follow up on something you said. And apologies if I misunderstood you. You said that sometimes an open public process where there's a lot of public input into a big town official like that, really with a lot of power, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you don't keep those folks for more than a year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did I hear you correctly? Okay. So what I'm wondering is can you point to like a reason to not have that open public process, where that open public process actually hampers the like the retention of that official, right? Because to me, I don't necessarily see the difference, the impact on the retention of a police chief, for example, or a town manager, just because like one was a targeted selection versus one being an open and public process. I don't see the through line to the impact on retention. And if we want to keep people long term, to my mind, a thorough process, a very open and public process, would actually help that build those relationships with community members ahead of time. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I think there's some very clear examples of why I would say in the main, at least my perspective, is that process is a detriment to finding the right fit. And, maybe a good example that's very current isn't necessarily a town manager, but I think it applies, is I think most people are aware of what's going on in Woodstock with their police chief. And you can see it from beginning to end. When their longtime police chief announced his retirement, they were another community that offered a public forum. Come in and tell us what you want in a police chief. So they went through that whole thing. Then they posted the job, and the job was posted in all kinds of places. And on the job posting, it said, this is what the vetting process is. We are going to have a citizens group, the village trustees, and the select board. They have two boards for the village and the town. They're going to review the applications, and they're going to make a recommendation. But the town manager has the ultimate authority to hire. So from somebody in my position, I know the town manager out there, and they're another community that's gone through a lot of turnover. So the town manager had only been there about a year when this thing came up. And they made the hire that they did. And I'm not commenting on whether he's a good, bad, or indifferent chief. It's just on the process. So they went through this very open process. And we all know what happened last week or 10 days ago when there was a 14-hour hearing about whether or not that chief should be demoted or removed and all that kind of stuff. And from where I sit as the town manager, what I see in that, guess who's getting sued? The town manager is getting sued, not the people on the citizens committee, not the boards, not anybody else that was involved. The town manager is getting sued for the treatment of the chief. Yet I'm going to guess that while it was his decision to make, how much latitude did he have giving his tenure with the town and the folks that were directing it? The reason I think it can undermine the process is that adage that a compromise as a decision makes no one happy. So when you're getting input from everywhere, you're taking a little bit from here, from here, from here, from here, and that could be exactly what the community needs. But if there's specific needs in the community, what you need is somebody with a specific talent that the people who are most familiar with the running of the town have. So you end up making a decision that really isn't pointed at the best candidate. It's the best appearance to satisfy the diverse expectations of this group that's put together. So that's where I say it can be a detriment. By doing this for 20 some odd years, my impression is when you want to see vision and leadership, you have your elected officials. They're here for the vision. The town manager is here to manage the vision of the board. So when you're looking for a position like mine or any of the staff positions, you want someone who has shown competencies doing that. It doesn't like, it always gets me when I see a common request in a town manager's, job posting is they want an MBA in, government administration. That's essentially somebody who knows how to run a bureaucracy and write grants. I can tell you, I have people who write grants for me, and you don't want to spend the money on me to have me sitting in my office putting together some bureaucratic document to get money. You want me managing the staff. Now, if you don't have much staff, maybe you want that person to be getting grants. But I find resources like the regional planning agency or other state agencies on our own staff to do that grant writing, and then I get involved in the administration. So the short answer to that long answer of mine is sometimes the broader outreach ends up with a very diluted list of requirements for the successful candidate that ends up undermining the actual success. Because no matter how much outreach you do, it doesn't include the entire community, and there's always going to be people who are dissatisfied.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question, Chair Howard?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I just like to be formal and respectful. So, am I hearing you correct, Tom, in saying that like the kind of too many cooks in the kitchen, like kind of gummies up the process. It makes it too slow, but it also doesn't. There are too many people deciding, and then the liability doesn't change to if something goes wrong with that candidate later on. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you can boil it down as never give responsibility without authority. So you start giving out the responsibility to hire to a group that doesn't have the authority to oversee and doesn't have the ultimate responsibility of the decision. So,
okay. So one thing I did appreciate that you pointed out was that you said, that it should be concentrated on, like, you should have a town manager hiring for a police chief that has a good sense of what the values, the concerns, the needs of the community are, correct?
right.
Okay, so can you kind of iron out, and this will be my final question, and I'll let you all continue on with your meeting. Can you highlight clearly how long it took you to make the decision, and how you went assessing the needs and the values that people wanted to kind of in a police chief, the needs of the community, the desires of the community? How did you assess that, and then how long did that take, and what was that process like for you? Please, thank you.
Sure. Understanding that I sometimes can be sarcastic, this isn't one of those times. I can say that the decision was a product of 15 years of my management here. I think an easy comparison of process is when Chief Soares retired. I was in this position for, I think, 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. A lot of that was occupied with dealing with Tropical Storm Irene and such. And I can't say that I had a great feeling for what the community was looking for. And we reached out for consulting service to do the vetting. I relied on the chief at the time to do the first round of reviews after the consultant, and then the select board and myself looked at the final 3 candidates. But now I've been here going on 15 years. I come to these meetings 2 times a month. I deal with an awful lot of issues in the community, good, bad, and indifferent. And I think we can all agree there are times that I'm doing things that most of the community supports. There are other decisions I make that are less supported, but all in all, that we've moved the community forward. So it's that 15 years of experience dealing with my staff, seeing the growth in our police department during that time, that gave me the confidence that I was sure in what we needed. That led me to, though, the outreach that I did, which included the select board members, our law enforcement staff, and our emergency management staff in the fire department to get their assessment of what they needed in the community, because they are the ones that handle those issues day to day. And I think we can all agree that the people that I'm referring to are highly respected in the community. So it's not like I'm asking troubled people what their troubled opinions are. So that's the background that gave me the confidence, and I still highly confident that this election is going to work out very well. Same as when Chief Frank was hired. It was the same process, and I had the same thoughts.
Did you also consult BLCT?
Uh,
Trevor, who's the law enforcement consultant there?
In a tangential way, I got a hold of Trevor, as did Chief Frank. If we needed Trevor in a search process, he was going to be a resource that we could bounce things off of. As it turns out, we had internally are able to do the entire background check, and Chief Frank can speak to that. But if there would have been issues with our selection, we would have known that, but we turned out not to really need Trevor. I thought one thing that I saw the email that was going around that I found very troubling was there was one statement that said, hey, there's no one size fits all solution, but another statement that said the process is as important as the hire. And I would argue that we could have a great process and you get a clunker of a candidate, things are not good. You have a clunker of a process and a great candidate, that's a different outcome. And I don't view those at all to be equal.
I totally understand your point. Sorry, last thing, I swear to God. I understand your point about having too many committees being involved in something. Why would the select board not be a suitable core? Like, why would this not be a suitable vote for the select board? And just like at least like one meeting for folks to talk about the hiring of the chief and hear about those values. I mean, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're 15 years of experience and absolutely would, concur that like you have a perspective on the needs of the community. But I would not ever, like as a leader, ever say that I know all of the needs of one community, right? There are a lot of different people in Windsor. There's a lot of different experiences with law enforcement that people have because of their social strata. So I don't know. I guess I don't understand why this wouldn't be a select board vote. Like why just a simple meeting would have been too cumbersome.
The select board was involved in executive session and the charter says it's my decision. So I'm not going to ask the select board to vote on it, because if they don't vote my way and then I go against them, that doesn't look good. And if we all get along, it didn't matter.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ethan. So our first order of business is under new business. It's a discussion item, Chief Frank, reviewing of the police department and selection of successor.
I feel like, you know what I feel so disrespectful, so I apologize. It's hard to see everybody. Jennifer Frank, Chief of Police for the town of Windsor. Good evening, select board members here, and to those of you that are out there. For the last time, as the Chief of Police for the town of Windsor, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you guys today. I will let you guys know today is hard for me. This is more than just a place of work for me. I love this community. I love this community so much, and this has been an opportunity for me for my career growth. I just pulled up a picture, and I showed former Sergeant Preachon photo of me back in March of 2015 when I came through. I was much younger looking and had a few less wrinkles. I'll pass it along just because it brings back some great memories. But I would like to start out before I have a chance to talk to the PD and just say that Windsor for me has always held something different. This is an incredible community. And I think sometimes we forget that with some of the challenges or the different positions or where people come from. But this is a special place. And I want to thank all of you. I want to thank our residents for trusting me to be your chief of police, because it's an important position and an important role. I have grown a ton as a police officer, as a person here, getting to know all of you. And I'm sorry, I'm usually much better than I am at this moment. But I want to talk to you about our PD. We have an incredible group of folks here. When I first came on, we were 60% staffed, and that's tough. How do you try to fill those shifts and still do all the other things that we're really good at, right? How do you engage with the community when you're just trying to figure out how to respond to calls? I'm pretty proud to say that today we are 100% staffed. We are fully staffed, but not just with bodies, fully staffed with really great people. And we have so many people who are currently applicants that we actually don't have positions for. And I think that says something about our community. It says something about the town of Windsor and about our reputation. I'm not speaking out of turn here But I do want to say that there was a time where Windsor was the place that officers went when they couldn't get hired somewhere else. That's not the case anymore. One of our most recent hires who came to us, I asked him, I said, why Windsor? He said, well, he goes, I went up to the academy and I asked them, where should I work? And they said, I go to either the Windsor or Rutland, which are the best PDs in the state. And I called up Ken Hawkins, who's one of the directors up there at the academy. I said, did you really say that? He goes, yeah. He goes, I meant it. He goes, you guys have come a really long way. He goes, when he told me what he wanted to be a part of, these are the two places that he recommended. And don't let Windsor officers go to Rutland, but we did that as a group and as a community. Our officers are incredibly professional. They have an incredible level of training, but most importantly, I think they understand the culture of policing. Our officers are not just enforcers of the law. Our officers understand what our community needs and how do you interact with individuals. I could give you hundreds, maybe even 1,000 different examples of that. Just tonight, even, we had an incident where DCF had to come in and take custody of a kiddo, and they sent in the sheriff to go get the kiddo. And we had an opportunity to say, can we hold on a second? We know this kid. I say kiddo, he's 17, but we said, we know this kid. He can sometimes be a little volatile. Can we go in and have a conversation with him first? We went in, we chatted. He walked out, got in the cruiser, and he's headed up to Burlington. I know you guys don't know this kid, and I can't talk about who he is because he's a juvenile, but that is huge because that's that relationship that those officers have built with a kiddo who has lost everything. His mom passed away. He was moved in with his aunt. His aunt passed away. He was moved in with his aunt's husband. They had a situation. He got pulled from that home and put into temporary housing. For that kid to walk out the door with 2 police officers to be moved into another location without the violence that we've seen before is a testament to the guys that I got working for me right now. When we walk through that, I've got officers like Sergeant Favros, who's our school resource officer. He's one of the most amazing people you've ever met. He has the ability to build these relationships with people and comes with 30 years of experience with state police and knowledge. Why does that matter? Because that's a leadership, right? That teaches our young kids coming through. And I bring that level of experience to our brand new officer. I got Officer Crane, who's just been out of the academy for a year, and he can de-escalate anything. It is amazing what he can do having those conversations, but building those relationships with people. I understand there's a lot more to policing than relationships. But if you do the relationships right, policing is the easy part, right? And with that, we got to get them the skills, the training. We have an incredible level of professionalism in special skills, but also in the regular academy requirements, right? The general trainings that you go. And I just bring that from point to point. I've got a young officer who's in the academy right now who came to us from Sullivan County, from the corrections. And the very first week he got there, immediately they appointed him and put him, we have different patrol leaders and responsibilities and squad leaders. They said, hey, you're a leader, let's go. And they put him right in charge of a squad of people in the recruit academy. That says something about Windsor, right? About where we are. Over the last 4 years, we've worked on our policies and procedures to make sure that we are doing best practices. We are one of the most professional agencies coming through. We have a great community that recognizes that policing is much more than just stopping the car and issuing the ticket. It's having the conversation, finding out what led to that incident. That's what makes Windsor so great. I recognize and I understand that there's some anxiety with the transition in the chief of police. So let's own it. Let's address it. Let's talk about it, right? Like have this transparent moment where we talk about what happens there, right? I need folks to know that back in 2007, Chief Daniels made a really bad choice. Absolutely made a mistake, 100%. And I've told that to his face. So I'm not saying anything to you guys that I haven't said to him before. What I can also say is this. He's an individual who made a mistake. He took accountability for it, worked through that process, and for the last almost 2 decades has served honorably for the towns of Springfield and for the town of Wethersfield in that position. What I love about Windsor is the place of second chances. Windsor is the place that recognizes you can make a bad choice. You can do something that you wish you didn't do, but you can overcome that and through growth. And that is one of the things that I think is most amazing about our community, whether it's folks who've worked through substance use, folks who've worked with alcohol abuse issues, folks who've worked through violence and violent tendencies, or folks who have theft issues. I see it because we're on that end. We see people typically in their worst. But Windsor is that community that goes, I got you. I know you made a bad choice, but that doesn't have to be you forever. And I don't know why we can't extend that to everybody. I made dumb choices too growing up, let me tell you. I hope that who I am today is not, who I was 17 years ago is not who people hold me to today, because I hope that I grow. And it's through those mistakes and through accountability and through owning where you were that we become better people. Because if we don't own those mistakes, that's an issue. For those who don't recognize, he could have had that expunged. He could have had it removed so that no one would know about it, right? I mean, there's always Google, so let's own that process. But I asked him about that. I said, why didn't you get it expunged? He said, because I did it, right? I did it. I own it. It's there. I think that says something about the person coming through, that we recognize that. And I also think that gives a power to that position of being able to go, I understand, because I too was in a spot where I almost threw everything I loved in my life away. I lost my family. I almost lost my job. I almost lost my freedom, but I was able to turn that around and do something better. I want those people to be in leadership positions. I don't want someone who's perfect, because I'll tell you, if you show me a perfect person, I'm going to show you a liar, because none of us are. I'm not saying he's the perfect person or that he's not the perfect person for it. What I am saying is I would hope that we would extend to him the same courtesy that I ask every one of my officers to extend to our community, which is people can mess up. But how do they turn around from that? How do they turn around and then use that to make themselves a better person? Because it's through that growth that we become better people. I look back again, like I said, of my growth through here. I'm so blessed. I look at the partners that we've had in some of those relationships. Those are the folks who make us good chiefs. I'm not going to say I'm a good chief. I'm an adequate chief. Why? Because of the people around me. Because I've got a really good police department. I know that I can call up Brian Barry, who's my detective, and I can ask him about any piece of technology, and he's going to know the answer, because that's a skill set that he has, right? I surround myself with good people. I know that I can call up Officer Bouchardile, who's got years of fraud experience, and go, I'm at the bank, and yeah, I'm the chief, but you know this way better than I do, because you spent 30 years, or 20 years in this financial division. What do we have here? Your chief is one person. If the culture of this PD changes because I leave, then I didn't do a good job. The culture of the PD, all the people are here. It's all of you guys. It's all of our community. It's all the towns. It's Mount Escutney Hospital that we work with. It's Windsor School System that we work with. It's the Welcome Center that we go down to. Like, that is your community. And if you want to have a good chief and a good leader, it's about reaching out, building those relationships, saying, hey, chief, you're not good at this, but I can help you because this is what I'm good at. I've got a good skill set. That is what is going to make Windsor go forward. Here's what I can tell you. It doesn't matter who's in this uniform or who's wearing the stars or whatever it is here. If Windsor's PD is going to be successful, it's because everybody here is going to say, we got you. We're going to do this as a community. Windsor's going to move forward. We're going to do this as a group, because any successes that I've had is because of people like this who are in the room, because you guys, because of the kid down the street who, you play football with, and you end up having a conversation and they're like, hey, you know that house down there? I think I saw somebody going in there, but I didn't even think anybody lived there. Thanks, bud. I'll go check it out, right? That's what makes a good PD. I'm just one person. I'm literally a position. I'm not saying the person isn't important who's here. I want to be clear on that. I do believe that the person who's here is important, but I also believe we need to give everybody an opportunity to show their best selves, because I would hope that every one of my officers and me does that for other people too. Because if we didn't, that's usually the only time we start to see people initially. We get cold when people are at their worst, and I don't want to hold people to that, because there's so much more to them than just that one moment. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. And honestly, I don't know what you guys were looking for me from today. But I do want you guys to know that I am the person I am today because of Windsor. Like, this is my home. This is my community. This is where my heart is. To the future citizens, or to the citizens of Milton, I'm excited. I really am. This is an incredible professional opportunity. It'll be good for my family. But you guys are going to be awful hard to leave. So I'm not sure what you guys needed today from me, but ask me whatever you need for questions, and I'll be there. But most importantly, I want to say thank you for your trust in me. Sorry.
No, you're doing so good.
I'm usually way more good than this, so I apologize.
No, when I asked Tom about you coming today, and I was like, is this kind of like an exit interview almost for you for
I have no
Windsor?
idea, but ask me a question.
No, I mean, is there anything that would have been better for you to get from the select board over your time here? Is there anything that would be better done by Tom? God bless you. Like, what can we do better for our next chief? Besides giving second chances, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's what's great about Windsor is if you need something, they're there. And sometimes it's the person you least expected. I gave people an example that one day, this is way back, this is back when I was a detective, but I arrested a guy in the morning for possession of crack cocaine. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was out in the middle of the street and I was wrestling with somebody and I was kind of losing. That same guy who I arrested came out, goes, I got you back. Came down and helped me wrestle the other person. We joked around. He goes, I still got court tomorrow. I was like, yeah, you still got court tomorrow. But I would just bring that up in that Windsor always helps Windsor, no matter what people have with each other here. Windsor always helps Windsor. It's why people go out at 11 o'clock at night to watch a bus come in from a field hockey tournament in the freezing cold weather, right? To cheer each other on, even if you don't have kids in the school. I would encourage Windsor to continue. It's easy, especially with social media now, to get nitpicky and to focus on things without having the whole story or the whole comment. Give people the benefit of the doubt, get to know them, have conversations. Thank you. The board has always been phenomenal. The column's always been phenomenal. The community's been great. Except from an exit interview, I have nothing but the best to say about being here. I am not leaving here because I didn't have an opportunity or I didn't get things that I needed or I didn't have a great department. Our department is the best it's ever been. That's when you leave. You leave when you know that you've got a really good group of folks that are there. If this was a sinking ship, I'll tell you, you guys would be stuck with me. I'd stay here until I knew that things were good. But in some ways, it's harder to leave when you're fully staffed with really great officers who are going to do some amazing things. But that's also when it's time to go. And if you've done your leadership right, you can leave with full confidence. I'm going to still follow Windsor PD. I'm going to see all the great things you guys are going to continue to do moving forward. You can't get rid of me that easy, but it's the people here. Like I said, we got a really good group. I had so many great candidates. I sent someone to the level 2 academy and said, we'll get you working. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Because we knew we had just an outstanding candidate that wanted to be here. It says something about the town of Windsor when people want to come here to work, right? Why here? What brings you here? That's the very first question I ask in every oral board interview. Why Windsor? Why Windsor PD? Because if you give me something like, well, the town of Windsor has X number of residents and, it's in the right spot for you. You've got to understand the character of the community.
I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done over the years. I had bad things happen a long time ago with cops. And then after that, I didn't trust any police officer. And you are the person that helped restore that for me. So I just want to say thank you. It's more than you'll ever know. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you as well. I appreciate your presence, your leadership, and what you've done.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of hard when I'm on the TV screen here, but thank you. And we certainly can tell how much you care about Windsor, and we very much appreciate you.
You'll be missed.
That's you guys.
I was gonna call Milton and tell them you were awful, but
I'm coming to visit you in Florida.
Anytime. I leave for 4 a.m. So I'm going down for a week. I have some classes to take that are crossover classes. I'll be back on the 11th. My last day in the office will be April 15th. Is there, again, I apologize. I didn't know what you guys were looking for. Is there anything that you needed from me? I want to make sure I don't leave any questions that are out there, anything that you guys have. I mean, my phone number's not going to change. So you can always call me, but
You guys heard that? We
Are you
can
keeping
talk.
me?
Then Frank, okay?
Like, she-
I still get calls from the people. I still get calls from Norwich people. I hope I get calls from Windsor.
You better come back and visit.
Some of this lack of direction is because I've had so much confidence in her. Like, there's not a lot of direction that I need to give her on the transition. It's just happened. And I didn't think that there would be a ton of, well, how come this happened? Or well, how can we never make that happen again like that? It's been a great 5 years, 6 years, almost 5, almost 6.
And I did 3 before.
Oh, yeah, you were here then. That was a tough decision on the hire. It got easier the second time.
Can you pass this down? They can zoom in and see my baby. That was when I first started in Windsor.
You need to do a before and after.
I think,
You know, this is what.
I don't know that, yeah, I don't still have a baby face.
Have images added to the,
Oh my God, she does have a baby face.
That's a baby face.
Windsor's
You
done this
do.
to me too, though.
She's gorgeous.
But-
Thank you for showing us.
Would you like to start your tradition? We'll put that on the wall out in the hall.
I'll think wiser. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Run away from the last select board meeting, you're done.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our second order of business is an action item to consider the appointment of Chief McAllister as the forest fire warden
is it possible to ask questions?
with Chief McAllister. Chief McAllister's not, I don't think.
Oh, no. I mean, I thought it would be possible to ask questions while Jen and, but Chief Frank and Chief Campbell's were here.
Yeah, I mean,
Chief
well,
Daniels isn't here. I can go get Jen.
Oh, that wasn't, oh,
No, that was Joe Preaching. He's a retired sergeant that just was coming back.
okay.
They're having a little show of support for the chief. She's had a very loading up a moving van and leaving at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we kind of had all hands deck loading the truck, but
We did this.
and I'm sorry, when I said, does anyone have questions? I meant anyone.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, okay. Just understanding, it's okay. Well, before we move on, then, could I say something?
Yeah.
I'm so sad that, they left. This is Shannon Smith again. I had the joy of, I wish Jen was still here. I had the joy of being pulled over recently by, Chief Frank, for speeding on the first day of school. It was a lovely experience. I cried, because that's what happens when I get stressed, and she was great, and I shouldn't have been speeding, so thank you, Jen. So I wanted to speak a little bit on, at the last meeting we had, the special meeting, I had hemmed and hawed about saying the specific thing as I was speaking with you all. And that specific thing was, I was going back and forth, was if we had somebody apply to this, to the position of chief of the fire department who had a plea deal for arson, like, would we be entertaining that? Would we be wanting to hire that person? And then I asked, like, why is DV less than that? And I want to say that I was going back and forth because I believe so strongly in second chances. I believe so strongly in hiring people who have criminal histories, who have gone to prison, people who have suffered with drug misuse, who are suffering with drug misuse. I feel so, and I was so back and forth on saying that. But I thought that it got my point across. And I think that what I mean by that is that we were just talking about the hiring policies and process around town managers and how, having that as Tom has like a targeted candidate can sometimes be more effective for many reasons, including, the fact that, when the book falls, I don't know my metaphor here, but when, stuff hits the fan, it's going to fall on your shoulders. Any litigation happens, stuff, excuse you. But I would counter that by saying part of the reason that this process this time felt so bad to so many people was because there was no process that opened it up. If that discussion with Chief Frank had happened before, how meaningful would that have been for the town of Windsor? I have no doubt that we would have come to the same conclusion that let's do that. This is what Windsor's good at. Let's give him a chance. And whether or not he works out and is here for 15 years, or if he leaves after 2, I don't think that has to do with the way in which we open up or close the hiring process. But what we can choose to do is open it up, because that's just what Jen was talking about. We are a community. We are a community. And when voices get heard and our fears and concerns are listened to and then answered eloquently, beautifully, then I have a lot less concern. If I had had the chance to have a conversation with Chief Daniels, I would have said to him, hopefully heard, what he had shared with Jen, I did a bad thing. And I almost lost everything, and I learned from it, and I'm better for it today. I would have heard that. And I would have said okay. And Jen also said, being able to have your colleagues say you're not good at that, but I am, let me help you. I would have said to him, I don't know if you're good at that anymore. I don't know if you're good at working with survivors of domestic violence. I don't know if you're good at that, but I am. So let me help you with that. That's all. That's all. It's just that we need to have these conversations. It's so important because it's so important. Yeah.
Let me just say that the reason it didn't happen that way is because Ryan, one of our select board members, violated the confidentiality of an executive session and put Bill's name out there.
Mhm.
The process was to come to the board, discuss it in private with that person's identity known to them, to have all of those discussions. That was circumvented by Ryan putting it out in public and completely misrepresenting Bill's background. Ryan knows he did that. He's called and made apologies for that. But that completely messed up what the process was that it was coming to the board in executive session, getting their input, making the decision to hire, but bringing out, Bill would have been here tonight. Instead, I did that video last week to do at least an entry so that you could see more about him. Would I consider an arson for the fire chief? Yeah, because there's arsons like a 17-year-old playing with fireworks, burning down his family's house. And there's the guy sneaking around, burning down the neighbor's barns with horses in it. I'll put the current
I just said that
situation.
was not a perfect.
Oh, right. No, but it is relevant because, you can frame almost anything in a way to meet whatever purpose you want it to be. And Bill's situation was completely misrepresented. And the people who knew the actuality was the Springfield Police Department, the Springfield community, when Bill was there and that happened. It was the background check. It was Jen knowing Bill before this conversation even started and knowing of that instance. All of that was known to the people I was speaking with. And when I was going through my chain of staff, department, select board, public, everybody would have met it. So all of that would have been happened, and it would have happened that way had Ryan not put that information out there inappropriately.
So I would just like to say, one thing is that my contact is bothering me. So as I've been sitting there, if I've been making weird eyes at you, I deeply apologize. It's just my contact. I would like to say that I can see how this process did not go the way that you were hoping for it to go because of what Ryan said. I will say that, Ryan, I think you were super brave and appropriate for sharing that information because, as we know, this hiring process is not a set thing. There was no expectation that Ryan could hold that he knew what would happen next. Would the select board be involved? Because I will tell you, I just went and I just researched in 2021 when Jen came on, the hiring process looked completely different than it did this time. There were 3 meetings that the select board had chances and opportunity to speak with Tom, to express their wants and desires and needs as he was beginning his search. I don't believe that you guys had an opportunity to say, like, here's what we're really concerned about. This is what we would like you to look at. And then he gave an update. And then he gave an update again saying he had found somebody, and at the next select board meeting, they would be coming to meet. And then there was that introduction. So this process was even shorter. You guys lost the power here. You guys lost the opportunity to voice your concerns. So Ryan, I applaud you. I know that you broke the rules, but I think sometimes we have to break the rules when the rules are bad. And as far as giving people second chances and all of that, I think in this specific situation, we have to look at the crime that was committed and understand that the weight of domestic violence, the impact on the individuals who are the victims sometimes, and sometimes the survivors of those scenarios, their life may forever be changed. They may not have been able to keep their job. I'm glad that Chief Daniels was, but sometimes after experiencing domestic violence, you can no longer engage in the workforce. You can no longer maintain healthy relationships. The fallout can be catastrophic. And also the fallout can be a casualty. It can be literal death. And so like, I understand that you wanted the process to be so neat, but I think that it could have been wiser for you to consider that this is not a typical applicant and that typical then, and in that case, perhaps some more information sooner and some faith in the select board. I don't think that they had faith in you.
I
Yeah.
completely understand that. And for all the reasons you said, that's why it is such an egregious issue that Ryan misrepresented Bill's background, because the
He
term,
didn't misrepresent, he
the
didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to
the
interrupt.
term domestic violence carries a wide range, most of it on the very, very severe side. And that's what was presented. And that is not at all what happened. And so I'm not going to debate it.
Yeah, no.
I'm 100% confident with the process. I get it. Some people don't get it. That's okay. But I'm 100% comfortable with it. And it went the way I liked it. I'm sorry that we had to have that hiccup in the middle.
I again say, Ryan, I applaud you. If Chief Daniels were here tonight, one of the things that I would have been asking him is, as somebody who had a relief from abuse order filed against you, a permanent relief from abuse order, why did you violate that 70 times? And what do you do to train? I think it was 70. I'm really bad at numbers. I'm not looking at it in front of me. So if I'm off, I apologize, just to be there. But it was an egregious amount. And I would have
That's a terrible thing for you to do, because that's 70 phone calls and you know that. And you're
Yeah,
presenting it like it's 70
Oh,
times
please
of
let
God
me-
knows what.
Please let me finish, Tom.
I'll let you finish, but shame on
So,
you.
well, if you had given me a moment, I don't know the exact number. I'm really bad at numbers, but a violation of an RFA is typically most often contact. In this case, it was phone calls. So imagine receiving that many phone calls from the person you're trying to. So my question would have been to him, you have that experience of behaving in that way. What have you learned? How do you train your staff so that they know what to do when someone is violating a relief from abuse order? How has this impacted the work you do as a police officer? And what will you be bringing to the town of Windsor with your knowledge? So that is what I would have said, because it wasn't Ryan presenting false information or the information is fact. It is what it is.
You caught yourself.
What?
You just had to catch yourself, because you know you're saying is
I didn't catch
misrepresenting.
myself.
You did. You said, well, it's factual.
I said
Sure.
it, Tom.
Speaking passionately.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
I'm
for interrupting you. I
I'm
asked the
trying
same
really hard
kind
not
of-
to sit like
so-
this, because the other thing about doing all of this is that I am actively speaking out against the chief of police. The soon to be like, that is terrifying. So just to like let you all know, like, I am literally shaking as I sit here. It's a scary thing to confront authority. It is a scary thing to deal with law enforcement. So I apologize. I didn't catch myself. I'm literally stuttering. So yeah, I just want to say, domestic violence is awful. It's awful to be yelled at. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Shannon. So our next item is an action item,
And it's to consider the appointment of Chief McAllister as the forest fire warden.
So we have to appoint a forest fire warden every few years. It's generally somebody associated with the fire department. We had the name's escaping, somebody who's retired from the department, served in the past. So Chief McAllister has volunteered to step forward in that, and he acts as a liaison with the state.
Is it Jen Frank that is currently the forest?
No, Ronnie Vizina.
Oh, okay, right, okay,
And he retired
gotcha.
midterm, but it's come up again. So it's
Okay.
Kevin.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Chief McAllister as the forest fire warden.
All right,
I'll second.
okay. Do we have any discussion on Chief McAllister?
Yes, Ryan.
What, did you say something, Ryan?
Oh, I just unmuted to vote.
Oh, okay, okay. Ryan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Emma?
Aye.
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 All right, so the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is another action item. It's to consider the appointment of Jenny as Assistant Town Clerk for term to end 4/30 of 2026.
So as I assume everybody knows, Riley White is one of our assistant town clerk. She is due with her first child next week. So Clyde had been the long-serving town clerk in Heartland. He's retired, but he also served as like somebody who trains newly elected clerks. So he's agreed to stop in a day or two a week to keep the clerk's office on track. That's kind of more the high-level thing of filing property records and stuff. We have cross-training of existing employees that can do a lot of the day-to-day stuff. So I don't expect Clyde to be needed for that long, but that's the length of the time.
So he's just covering while Riley's basically out for maternity.
I have a question. So why does it say till 2026? She's not coming back for a.
No, it's just a term. Riley hasn't said I'm going to be out for a month. So it's just,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
term that'll go when Clyde is finished or when Riley is
Comes back.
ready to go, Clyde will just resign.
Oh, I see. Just kind of the cover
Okay.
up
Yeah.
period. Okay. Cause I thought, is that a typo?
Riley is coming back, right? Okay, so I think we would need a motion to consider Clyde as the assistant town clerk.
All right, I'll make the motion to consider Clyde Jenny as the assistant town clerk for that term as stated in this letter.
A second.
Okay.
All right, and do we have any more discussion on this? Hearing none. Ryan, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 All right, so that passes as well. The next is also an action item. It's to consider support for grant application for the planning commission work on bylaws.
So you may recall a few meetings back, we had a representative from the regional planning agency to discuss some changes in laws and need to update some bylaws and eventually a town plan, and that there was a grant available to do that. So the planning commission had to vote to apply for the grant. The select board's approval is needed to apply for the grant. I think it's one of those grants that everybody just gets, and then we can move forward on working on the town bylaws.
Right. I'll make a motion that we support the grant application for the planning commission.
I'll second it. Do we have any discussion for their grant?
I have a question.
Yeah.
We had talked at that last meeting about a grant. Is this the meeting, the meeting you referred to? Is this the same grant?
Yeah.
Okay. So
They've been
it's-
working on this for a while.
It's happening. Okay.
Yeah. Did they make the deadline? I
Yeah,
feel like it was today.
The 31st. The
Oh, okay.
31st. So the planning commission met, they signed off on it. They forwarded it to us. We'll sign off on it. And the planning commission is actually the one submitting the grant. So there's paperwork in here to sign, but I'll get it to the planning commission tomorrow.
I hope they get it. Ryan, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Excellent. So that passes as well. The next item is also an action item. It's to consider appointments of board liaisons to the Planning Commission and WIC.
I think we can, all of the board commissions, like the board members run, May 1st, April 30th. You can appoint anybody you want tonight, but Paul is gone, so we need a WIC, for the April meeting. But the other ones, if you're not sure yet, really don't have to happen until May.
Okay, cool.
I would like to volunteer to be the WIC liaison.
Yay. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Not a problem.
Well,
I take them one at a time. If you're gonna do more, vote
Yeah.
on them one at a time.
did anybody else want to volunteer or?
No, I can't, I mean, I
Gonna be
can't,
the sole-
I can't make those meetings.
I got you.
Jedi isn't on there. Is that because of concern about them meeting quorum?
I'm sorry.
I'm saying Jedi isn't on there for a board liaison, and I'm wondering if that's because of uncertainty about them being able to
I
make.
don't think so. I think it's just not on there. Maybe. I don't.
Well,
know.
I put it together and the planning commission was
all.
top of my mind and WIC was on, so those two were just there. So,
Don't we normally appoint the others later though in May?
yeah, normally they come when the new boards are formed in May, and because they all meet once a month. And really up until Jedi, there were never board liaisons. So
Yep.
board members can go to any of them. WIC is a little bit different because the select board member is a voting member of WIC. None of the other liaisons are voting members. So anybody can go anywhere they want.
All right, well, I will gladly make the motion for Jeffrey to be the liaison to WIC.
I'll second.
Awesome. Is there any discussion? Ryan, how do you vote?
I.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Jeffrey, to WIC. All right, we have another action item, and this is to consider the approval of TA 60 Annual Highway Financing Plan.
This is a boilerplate document we have to do every year that just indicates in our budget how much money goes towards highways. In a lot of towns, they separate the highway budget from the other budgets. Smaller towns where really the highway department is the municipal service. So I need that done and signed by the select board. That makes us, it's a grant, but you get it every single year. It's somewhere usually around $110,000 to $120,000, and this document goes along with that. So I ask you to please approve it, and there's a document to sign in that packet.
Nothing's in our packet.
All right, so we just need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the TA 60 annual highway financing plan.
Okay,
My second.
all right. Is there any discussion? Ryan, how do you vote?
I.
I.
Aye.
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 Look at us go. All right, we have another action item. It's to consider the approval of a town pension regulatory update.
So this is something, life has gotten a little more complicated than it used to be. What this is I'm asking you to vote to approve an update to our pension plan that brings us into compliance with changing federal law related to pensions. We have one, you have a question now, or you want to wait to the end?
No, I was gonna wait today. Sorry, I just wanted to put my hand up for it.
So up until about 2020, the town had its own pension plan, and it was administered by Future Planning. They're the ones that make sure it stays in compliance. In 2020, we moved to VEMR's. It's the Vermont Municipal Employees Pension Plan. So all new employees go that way. The existing employees had a choice to either go on to VEMR's or just stay where they are. So we have certainly pensioners out there receiving checks, and we have some employees on it. So where we used to have one company that really was involved things, now we have Future Planning that does the regulatory compliance. We have another company that does the actuarial assessment every year. We have another company that mails the checks to the pensioners, and we have a bank that we deposit the money in. So all of the components have become much more specialized over time. So again, this is something that is, it's a thick document, but it has everything to do with what pension laws state. So there'll be a document in the packet to sign on that as well.
Brian, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, how many people do we still have in that pension? But I guess half of this is people that have already retired and we're still paying them out, correct?
Yeah, I think the number is somewhere around 60 total participants, with the majority of them already retired. You know, we do still have some of our longer term employees that are on the plan that are active.
So we would need a motion.
Make a motion to consider the approval of the town pension regulatory update.
I will second that. Any more discussion? Hearing none.
Oh, sorry. Tom, we're not worried about that pension plan, right? It's pretty good shape. It's healthy.
Um, yeah, yeah, and the short answer is yes, we get the actuarial report every year. There used to be more drama because the percent funding of the plan is impacted much more by the market conditions than they are the contributions we make. So we would get a statement saying that if we're supposed to have $5 million, we were 500 or 600,000 underfunded because the market had a terrible year. And then we get a thing saying we're 300,000 overfunded because the market had a great year. So now the state plan, they just say contribute 7.25% of payroll, and the employee contributes something too. So we don't have these wild fluctuations. So we get the assessment every year to say where our funding is. And when they give you the value of, so yeah, this much money in the bank and here's your pension liability. That pension liability is if you had to cash out that day, which in municipalities, we very rarely go out of business. You know, we all probably have heard stories of companies going out of business and they were not paying into the pension plan or borrowing money from the pension plan. And then that day came and they had no money and people got beat out of pensions. So government doesn't necessarily go out of business, but we've always been well funded as an industry standard on that.
So with this, when we're not relying on like the pensioners putting in the pension, we basically are just, we have to make sure that we keep it funded until there's no more pensioners, right?
Right. Yeah. The people who are already retired obviously aren't paying in anymore. The employees who are on the plan have to contribute, I think, 4.5% of their wages. And then the town makes up what the actuarial report suggests. Again, as opposed to the Beamer's plan where the employees and the employer both have a stated percentage of payroll that gets paid to the state and they administer that.
Thanks.
Brian, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, so that has passed as well. Next, we have a discussion item, and it's 15 and 29 National Street Housing.
So I expect everybody is familiar with one house the town renovated down on Jarvis Street, I think in 2017. So we spent about $140,000 to renovate that, kind of as a proof of concept, and it's been rented ever since. And it's technically owned by the Windsor Improvement Corporation. At that same time, Windsor Improvement acquired 29 National Street. And through tax sale, the town owns 15 National Street. And over all the years, we have made numerous attempts to divest of those two properties. They're severely dilapidated eyesores in the community. We've offered a number of times to give the properties away with the condition that they have to be developed to a standard similar to the one that we did. So somebody doesn't come in and do the bare minimum and undermine the whole purpose of this process. So we have continued, along with the Windsor Improvement Corporation, to seek solutions. About a year and a half ago, I contacted some builders to get estimates on what it would cost to either tear down the houses and rebuild them or to renovate the houses. And the estimates were in the neighborhood of $240,000, $250,000 to do that. These are 900 square foot houses kind of thing. So much different than 2017 when it was 140, when we were screaming that it was costing too much at that point. Well, over the past year, I had Haley put together packages. It takes all the properties the town owns, which included the dry cleaner site, the building on Union Street that's in disrepair, these two houses, a vacant lot on River Street, and just go through all of the regulatory things that touch it, the zoning regulations, brownfields if they apply, flood if that applies, and give that regulatory profile of the public. And then we reached out again to contractors to see if anybody would be interested, and if they were interested in doing what. Well, we've been, for the last couple of months, have had some, I consider, very productive conversations with Blanchard Contracting. He's done a fair amount of work for the community, and the concept that we are pushing forward with is the idea that the town maintains ownership of the lots, and the town will pay to have new homes put on them. The reason this seems to be working out is Blanchard has recently become a regional representative for a prefabricated home company that's in Poughkeepsie or Schenectady. There'll be more details to come. This is kind of, hey, this could be coming down the pike. And Greg has given us a pretty firm estimate that for $210,000, we could get brand new construction ready to move in. So remove the existing house, put in flood compliant, either elevation or, foundation, house on, ready to go, open the door and go in. So significantly less expensive than others, and the fact that he'd be willing to do it. What he is not willing to do is own them, because like the other houses down there, he'll be in it for less than 210. He's going to make money on it, but he's not going to, the market values have been, say, 100 would be aggressive. Maybe it's getting better. The market certainly is. Hey, the value is whatever somebody's willing to pay. But this can be a way to continue in the same model as the one house that we do own, to add 2 more housing units to the community, improve the quality of what the construction is down on that end. And I know it's been a long time since we talked about it, but those streets down there contribute more per square foot than any place else in town. The condition of the homes aren't all that great, but there's a lot of density there. So we get a utility bill for everyone, and we get property taxes for everyone. So by adding 2 more brand new structures that are energy efficient and all the rest of the things, we hope that just continues to motivate investment, even if it's the town's investment, to continue on that path. So where we are right now is that's the concept that's out there. I've asked Haley to get to work on the zoning applications, because the town's going to own it. So we would submit the application, and it will go through all of the various processes that includes the historic review, flood, all of the things. But while this company that Greg represents has standard models, he did reach out to them and ask them to design something that is consistent with the design that's down there, which has been an important component of this. So
How much are we charging in rent, or how much would the property you said we were going to contract out to a property company to manage the properties. How much are we charging? Are they going to charge ?
But as much as we can get. No, look at that. Well, there's a discussion there. We're getting, I think, $900 a month for the house on Jarvis Street.
How many bedrooms is it?
It's the same 900 square feet.
Okay.
Brand new, energy efficient, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But when the town owns it, you either choose to cover your expense, or you choose to subsidize a taxpayer's mortgage. And there's certainly, there's housing authorities all over the country that municipality and governments run, but that is that's a serious question for the board to undertake. That I think it will be reasonable. It'll be more reasonable than I'm sure what the market bears, because we're not looking to make a profit.
Yeah, to 900 to me, I would need to talk to other people in different pay scales, but 900 to me sounds reasonable for a 2-bedroom.
Well, and that was based on $140,000 construction cost. So what the benefit that we've always talked about, it hasn't come to fruition, but the financial problem is that they appraise for much less than the cost of construction. That's why no one's building. But if you want to sign an agreement that says, I'll pay $1,000 a month rent, we'll just pick an easy number. If you choose, we'll make it easy. We'll say you rent for 5 years. Well, that's $60,000 you've paid in rent. The town can say, we'll credit that towards your equity in the house. And now with a $60,000 down payment, essentially, you can go to a bank and borrow the rest. So there's a path to home ownership that you can't get anywhere else, and that can be a benefit. But you have to be prepared when you say, well, I want to make sure people can afford it. Let's charge $500. That when the next person comes to the select board and says, you know what, my rent's a little high too. I'd like you to subsidize mine. You know, I'm paying $1,200. I'd like to pay $500. And you have to be able to look them in the eye and tell them why you will or won't do that.
Ryan, did you have a question?
Yeah. Tom, so you think the ultimate goal is to put something there and have somebody like the situation you just described, just kind of build equity? Or, so like you said, where they can actually, it's in its appraised value, opposed to like the construction cost, or do you think it's kind of more just a long-term housing thing that puts some more housing in Windsor? What's your kind of long-term goal on that, do you think?
Well, I think there's the worst scenario is the town owning them and having to deal with being landlords. So a better solution is that rent that goes to equity towards ownership. So if we get the rent that we can either pay for some of this through our revolving loan funds or through a bond, but if we get rent that pays off our whatever fund we used to pay for this, now we have more money to reinvest. If that scenario happens where you get $60,000 in equity, and I'm just pulling that number out of there, and the folks say, we love living here, we want to buy, well, then we're going to get the rest of the money from the bank. And now we have more money to do the whole thing all over again, and we can continue that process. So we're only refreshing the pot of money that built the house. So the more we can get back in, the more we can continue to do this. And I don't want to do pie in the sky things, but flood regulations are always the big bugaboo down that way. And, when we were going through this process, I said, well, we have that big parking lot in front of Goodyear. Can't we just put, 40 houses on stilts? We're talking stilts like this, not like Outer Banks, 12-foot high stilts, and make a pretty cool little community down there with this concept. And I'm not going to say that's easy, but there's not a hard stop that says you couldn't, replicate this process of prefabricated quality homes that come in that meet a very strong need that the community has. So this is a kind of a small scale proof of concept.
Yeah, and if you look, I don't know if, like, I have my computer in front of me. If you look at Google Street View and there's the picture from basically this time last year, compared to 2013, when it was like a jungle and overgrown. I think this has been a really cool thing that I was a bit suspicious about or skeptical of when Wick first did it. But I think the value, and as Tom said, if you dig into like what is the group, Tom? Small towns or strong towns or something?
Yeah.
They talk about the density of tax base in these areas. I think it's a pretty cool thing. Did we vote last year or something to approve the money, the bond or something on that as a board, or was that just conceptual stuff we talked about?
Yeah, we have a $1 million bond authorization to address blight, which is pretty broad. But I would say getting rid of 2 cruddy houses and putting 2 new ones is pretty good definition of addressing blight. But we also have a variety of revolving loan funds that this would come pretty close to tapping out, but we haven't had a lot of activity loaning that elsewhere. So that could be a way to get into this without borrowing money. And let's say we had this huge demand for business loans and whatnot from the revolving loan fund, we can always borrow from that blight fund to replenish the revolving loan fund instead of buying the house. So there's options, but I from what I understand, if the permitting stuff goes according to plan, we could see people living there by the end of the summer.
Wow.
And Tom, you said there's two, is it the brown one that looks kind of like an old barn and the white one next to it? I just,
No,
not that that's important.
15 is kind of catty corner to the greenhouse on Jarvis Street.
Yeah.
And then 29 is further south on National Street, and it's oriented the opposite way. So the long side of the house is facing the street.
Oh, it's the other way. Okay. All right. Anyways, I think it's great.
I'm just gonna say, you answered my question. It was like, where would we get the money to pay up for that?
That's where we would get the money.
Yep.
I hope it happens.
I think it's a good thing.
And if we can replicate it, we need enough.
So,
Better
We'd
thing.
be on a real roll.
is there a chance that this would be happening soon?
Haley's preparing the permits, so we'll say I believe April, it's on the DRB agenda. So, we've already had the DRB and the Design Review Commission in the past go down and do site visits down there just to get an assessment of historic significance and things like that. Not like all the answers are done and done, but we're not starting from zero here. And the fact that it's prefabricated, you're not guessing what it's going to look like. You're not guessing on the quality. You're saying, this is what I'm going to build, and it'll show up here on a trailer, and Greg's got a crane and he'll put it on the site. And there we go.
You're not, oh, sorry. There's no,
Brian?
we have the bond, that's not costing us any, like, is there tax implications for that? Or we've got the money elsewhere and hopefully it's going to
No.
start paying itself back, right?
There's bond authorization, which is what we have in this case, where we go to town meeting and we float a bond question to say, do you approve of the town bonding for this purpose? So that lets the bond markets know that the community has voted to support this bond and taking it to the next step to support the debt service that's going to go along with it. So the next step that would be required is for the select board to act on that bond authorization, like to take a vote to say, go bond blank amount of money. We do that when we do road bonds, sewer bonds, all that kind of stuff. And then we go to the bond market through the state bond bank and say, we want $500,000 to rebuild Pine Street, or, whatever it is. And at that point, it goes to market. We have the money, whether we use it or not, we have access to it, and we start making bond payments on it and paying interest on it. Normally, there's an intermediary step where there's only 2 times a year where you can go to the bond bank. So we'll go and get a bond anticipation note where we go to a bank and say, we have this bond authorization, but we can't get the money for 8 months. Can we borrow money from you to fill that gap? And we do that and then pay that note off when the bond is earned.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so the next, now, this is an action item for the tax anticipate extension.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not like a bond anticipation, but a tax anticipation we get every year. And there's always been, there's a statutory requirement that you have to pay that off by the end of the fiscal year that you're borrowing for. So they have always been for June 30th. We got an email earlier this week saying, hey, don't forget you got to pay your 1.2 million off by April 1st. And we're like, why would we have to do that? Well, we went back and looked at the paperwork that was filed, whenever that was filed, and for whatever reason, April 1st was entered as the payoff date. So Natalia is leaving for Columbia tomorrow, and she's like, Tom, I got to get all this stuff done. And she did get it all done. And there's documents in here to sign to say, yes, please extend it 3 months to June 30th. So please vote to do that. So I need a motion to extend that.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Second.
I have a question. It was a mistake then, the date was April 1st was a mistake, or is that?
No, it was a mistake. It's never been that. And
In that?
I don't,
Okay,
somewhere I didn't catch it, but it's something that's so standard. I'll take full blame, but I have no idea why it was filled out that way.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 All right. Now we're going to move into old business with legislative discussion.
I don't really have anything.
I don't either.
It's been going kind of slow because things are kind of bottled up with the education
Yeah.
stuff, so it's a little atypical.
Did anyone go to the presentation on the 22nd?
I didn't get to.
I didn't
was in
either.
select board
I
training.
know, I was out of town. I just, you went? You went.
Is that gonna be?
Didn't you give a report?
Was it, that was,
When the senators came and met at the Welcome Center?
On Saturday. this
I
I
past
really
Saturday.
wanted to go.
I maybe I forwarded a letter to you.
I got a letter,
So
yeah.
the American Precision Museum was there, and apparently there was a conversation about their interest in having the Constitution House more active,
Mm.
not waiting till 2027 to do mold remediation and whatever else they had to do. So I wrote a letter in support to those legislators today, with our concern and support about how important it is to our community. So that's something that came out of it.
Excellent.
And Joe Major was willing to take that on, it looks like. Okay, and support. Nice.
Good deal. And we're going to move into the town manager's report. We're going to start with website improvements, Civic Plus update.
Okay, so funky website's been something, that those complaints start the day after you launch a new website, but that was like 2012. So I've been reaching out to some of my peers to see what they have for solutions. And there are a number of, I'll say, nationally recognized platforms that are used. And then there's the others that are more, I'm gonna say, homegrown, using self-built thing. Civic Plus is one of the more widely used applications, and it is same price as everybody else, and it's kind of like buying a lot of different things. There's this price, and then is, well, if you want tires on your car, it costs a little bit more, and if you want this on your car. So I have Cliff McNaughton helping with this, as well as Marco Vasquez, who handles our social media postings, both giving me some insight in working on a selection process. And then we've had 2 meetings now with Civic Plus to discuss their capabilities and the services they provide to help roll out and maintain that. So my expectation is we will go with a Civic Plus platform in some iteration, probably closer to basic than more advanced. And then there's always opportunities to add components, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but one thing is the biggest complaint I get is the difficult way it is to search our documents. So one of the benefits when you listen to the sales proposal is, wow, with Civic Plus, you can search everything and you find everything. And they have a search box like everybody else does, and they also have a search bot. And Lebanon has the search bot, and it's like maybe $2,700 a year to have that plugin. Cliff had mentioned that he went to some different sites and asked the same question through search and through the bot, and you really didn't get any better, and sometimes a worse result, because the AI tool needs to get trained. So, the less staff you have, the less effective some of these tools can be. So I think that's why we're leaning more towards a basic component, migrate the information, get it to look the way it's supposed to, do all that kind of testing. And then if we need to get to the next level of a component for a number of different things, we can do that. But an objective would be to, sometime this summer, move it over so it would look different and be more user-friendly. And if there is an even further outlook than that, it's used in the area. There's 7 or 8 towns in Vermont that I know off the top of my head use it, but Enfield, New Hampshire uses it. Lebanon, New Hampshire uses it. Weathersfield uses it. That maybe there's a role for kind of like a regional webmaster. If we're all using the same program, they have somebody who's paid to just make sure that the documentation is current and the plugins are working and things like that. So we're not there yet, but that's one of the ideas. Okay,
Right on the finance update.
So there's a document that I put in, but it was later this afternoon. You may not see it. And this is kind of the first phase of what's going to be some more detailed financial conversations over the next year as we implement some policies that can help guide how we spend money and borrow money, things like that. This document that is in your packet, I doubt it, unless you printed it out at like 5 o'clock, you're not going to have it. Roughly speaking, this is the information that I wanted to convey, that we have today about $4.4 million on hand. And that is about 1.3 million in basically our checking account, 700,000 in our capital fund, 900, almost $1 million in our reserve fund, 600,000 in our water capital fund, 450,000 in our sewer capital fund, 295,000 in one revolving loan fund, 62,000 in another revolving loan fund, and 30,000 in another revolving loan. So that's all the cash that we have. So woohoo, everything is good. But based on a month-over-month analysis for the last quarter of the year, last year, we're going to need around $2.1 million to get between now and the end of the year. And in addition to that, we need to make another $1.1 million school payment, and we need to make a $1.2 million tax anticipation bond. So coincidence or more, that comes to somewhere around $4.4 million. So seems like it's great. We'll end the last day of the year with no money in the bank, and we start the next day with no money in the bank to go next. And this is typical. I think it's reasonable to say, well, gosh, we pay all of our taxes. Why do we need this tax anticipation note? Why do you need to borrow things? And I put together a short list of what is a typical month for municipal finances. We're always carrying about $325,000 in accounts receivable for our ambulance billing. So we're always getting money, but insurance companies pay slow, so we're always about that far out. We are about $500,000 in the rears on our utilities because we provide the service for a quarter, send out the bill, wait another 30 days to get paid. So even if everybody paid exactly on time and we started the new business April 1st, we'd be having payroll and all that stuff from April, bill it at the end of April and not getting paid till the end of May. So that's just a continual thing where we're always that far behind. But then in addition to that, we are carrying about $165,000 in utility delinquencies. And that is fairly common. And we go through the collection process and shutoffs and things like that. We have about $535,000 in property tax receivables. Now, we haven't reached the end of the second 60-day grace period. And we expect that to probably be reduced by a couple $100,000 by April sometime. But we're still, that's money that we have on the books, but it's a receivable to us. We have about 85,000 in prior year delinquencies. So that's the whole tax sale process. And then we have a work in progress. I called it, that's like, just the other day, we got a $185,000 payment for those emergency radios. So we had to buy those up front, and then we had to wait for the grant to come back. That's fairly typical. We have to expend money before we get paid for the grant, or we have to expend money before we submit for a bond on a construction project. So sometimes that number is closer to $100,000. Sometimes that number is closer to $800,000. But when you add all that stuff up, coincidentally or more, you come back to around 2.1 million. So this year we used 1.2 million on a tax anticipation bond to help with those cash flow ups and downs. Right now we have so much money in the bank because, middle of February was the second tax collection date. We had a utility quarterly bill come in. So we have all of that, and a lot of our expenses are front loaded to the first part of the year, a lot of the bond debt and things like that. So we have money in the bank. It's always tight. We, what you're going to see coming forward is a monthly statement that kind of shows you where we are for cash and for receivables. You're also going to start seeing during this last part of the year, we're going to have to borrow from these reserve funds in order to meet our obligations to get to the first of the year where we can do another tax anticipation note. So I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, for example, the first one we could do is borrow $500,000 from our reserve fund. And you're going to say, okay. And I'll say, we'll pay it back by July 1st. And it'll be probably no interest on that because it's all our money. If we end up having to borrow from our water or sewer capital funds, we may charge a couple percent interest. And that's just because while everybody who's on our system pays property taxes, it is a different customer base that's on our water system and on our sewer system. Most are on both, but some are not. So the theory is, if you're a ratepayer on our water system, why should you subsidize the tax base by loaning the tax base your money? So that there's a nominal fee to recognize the fact that they are different customer bases. The payoffs are times are still a matter of months. So we'll be getting more formalized with that. Exciting stuff.
Super.
Okay. Municipal projects. I think at the WIC meeting the other morning, I went through some for WIC and Jeffrey's like, are you sure? How come I don't know about it? And it's true. And it's because we're getting into the beginning of the construction season and there's stuff that's out there. So, feel free to stop me and ask questions when you want. But rail yards recreation, if you've been down there, it's starting to look like a park. You know, the topsoil spread out, there are paths and whatnot like that. Today I ordered some sitting benches and picnic tables and grills and stuff that'll get delivered and get assembled and put over there. We have cash that's been raised from private donations, a grant for trees, a grant for fencing and landscaping, a grant for part of the skate park. So we have, altogether, I think we were somewhere around $700,000 that have been put forward, and the project's about 900, so we're not all the way there yet. The skate park, the big feature, the original design was going to come in at around $550,000, which wasn't unexpected, but we were hoping to get a VOREC, the grant for recreation, that we didn't get, and they're not offering that program this year. We went back to the designer and asked if they could build it incrementally. So they came back with a design that is sort of half, and he says this is a pretty standard process, so you can design it, build half of it, it's still functional, and when you're ready to do the second half, you can attach it to them. And this is like the closest thing it can come to is the one in Lebanon, so poured concrete bowls and things like that. So, I may be coming to the board and saying, hey, here are some different financial options. Do you want to commit any town money? And if you do, you do. And if you don't, you don't. There will be a park there that digging up some pictures of what that property looked like in, say, 2010 or 11, and what it's going to look like now. And that's another one that I think everybody with a straight face can say that's blight improvement right in the middle of downtown. And I think the dog park will be ready to go. I know we have a dog park, but all that is a fence. So now you can go and bring your dog in a fence downtown. Like I said, the picnic tables, parking lot, paths, all of that will be there. Grass will all be done.
It is not just a fence. There is $10,000 of agility courses in that.
Not at the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I thought you were saying that.
No, the new one.
I'm like,
The new one
is
so
not.
I'll say the new one will not have that stuff.
Okay. When you say we're talking about the rail yard group, the committee or the group in town, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of the royal.
Are you kind of working with them?
The-
Are you
so-
on that committee or?
This is all the brainchild of Terry McDonald,
Right.
who owns the corporate park up where Harpoon is.
That's what I thought.
And his interest was that the town has been very supportive in building out that park, and he wanted to do something for the community, and he is passionate about kids being outside and
Right.
active. So that's why this thing. So Terry formed a nonprofit And he went out and he raised the 150,000 or so in private donations. He applied for the Better Places grant that brought in another 60,000. It was a $40,000 grant, and he did the crowdsourcing to raise another 20. So he took care of that. Then there were funding programs that towns are eligible for. So Terry did the work, but we applied for the tree grant. Terry did the work, but we applied for the downtown transportation grant. So those are going to be ours, and we fully expect and have from the beginning that when this park is operational, Terry is not going to hire people and send them down there and mow the grass and
Right.
blow the leaves out of the thing. That it will become a town function. Rail yards, his group may say, you know what, we'd like to do more. Like we're planning to do the brownfields remediation for the property immediately to the south where the sand pile used to be. Yeah, it'd be nice. I don't think it's going to get done this summer, but maybe next summer. So, and that's just to clean it up, you know, but it also opens up a lot more space. I do expect this summer to have pickleball courts put out at the fairgrounds where that skate park is, or at least occupying part of that. So there's a lot of parts in play. The exchange building will be usable, but there's no plan at this point to improve it, to put restrooms in it or things like that. So that's going to be more grown organically. And if there's interest,
Like community driven.
right? So there'll be a nonprofit that can drive that, or the community can come to the town and say, please spend $100,000 putting in bathrooms. So there's.
So thanks for clarifying that.
It's exciting.
It is.
Everybody want to get off the train when they see that. Okay, related, but not nearly as exciting, but it's still exciting. You may not even know it, but in 2017, we got a grant to put a park and ride parking lot down on River Street, kind of right by the railroad tracks. They qualified because there's a train station there. All it is a hard pack rectangle. And nobody uses it other than me when we go to the station for dinner because it's over there and I don't have to worry about hitting somebody. Well, we've got another grant to improve that. So we're going to pave it. There'll be lighting. They'll have, the appropriate markers, and there's going to be 2 high-speed charging stations there that was supposed to go in the lot up at the parking lot, but we're going to move them. It wasn't ready to go that, so we're going to put them down in this River Street lot. That's still a little bit, it's not finalized, but it's all, the funding's all there. The town's not paying for that. Norwich Technology has kind of spearheaded that. And these are I guess, super fast charging ones. 2 of them went in up at Artisans Park by Silo, if you're curious what they look like. So
They free? Like, is it free for people to use?
I don't know how it works.
Okay.
I'm going to guess no, because
I don't have any.
I think a lot of times
they
put a
charge,
card in,
yeah.
yeah, the ones that I've seen.
when I've had conversations with this type of thing, it kind of gets in the cost and the ongoing maintenance to provide a pay station isn't worth the aggravation of collecting the money. Like when they don't work, you got to send a technician out to do that, or somebody, puts a piece of wood in the little slot, all that kind of stuff. But I think there are other things where you can do like a tap thing. Like I really don't know that it goes that way, but it won't be on the town's nickel. I'll say that we're not paying for the electricity that happens. And I guess because of the speed, my understanding is these are like $180,000 a piece. So they're expensive and they're fast, and I would be surprised that there are people rushing to build these to give them away. So.
And those will be the only 2 in town.
Well, there's 2 at Artisans Park, so that's
Oh,
4.
that's true. You said that.
Yeah, and the
The
hospital
hospital
has.
has Yeah.
So there are ways around it.
Okay.
Next, flashing crosswalks. So we were awarded a grant to put solar powered flashing crosswalks, and they will go to crosswalk at the library, the crosswalk by SD Associates, that's in the old fire station town hall, and out at Kennedy Pond, there's a crosswalk there. So that's a 50-50 grant. So we got about 17.5 for that, and the town's on the hook for 17.5, but we'll get those ordered. We have the site plans and, you know, the things have to be X number of feet away from the crosswalk is, so we're going through all of that stuff now, but I expect they will be installed sometime this summer.
Did you have a question on that?
I was wondering if, there was any plans to get a crosswalk, um, at the Union Street, like Union to Main Street intersection, just because the Union Square apartments are there, the Precision Museum is on the other side, and I don't know, I'm really like, I was just wondering if that's just yet another really great intersection for some extra safety for pedestrians.
No, and you bring it up, and that's something no one's ever mentioned to me. I get a lot about the other intersection, but it's just been one of those things. I haven't heard about it. And if that were to be done, it wouldn't be through something like this, it would be programming the lights. So, you know, kind of related to this, I would get a lot of concern about the state and Maine thing, because that's a weird intersection to start with. And people are saying that they're, you know, right turns on red and then they don't see the people in the crosswalks. So probably 3 months ago, we paid $12,000 to upgrade that panel so that you can do four-way stops. You can push a button and it'll do a pedestrian it's red all four ways, and you can go and do that. There's a great big sign there that says, watch for people in the crosswalk if you're going east on State Street and want to make a right-hand turn. But you're still allowed to turn off red. But there's a sign there and you can cross when everybody's got a red. And then we've replaced the signal at Union and Main Street maybe 3 years ago when it just quit working. And that was in the neighborhood of $50,000. And I don't know if it's because there just was no control box there really, but it just didn't come up. It's just we've replaced in kind of what's going on. So. A bridge people may not even know about is the Johnson Road Bridge. It's a kind of off a county road and it goes on to Johnson Road. Johnson Road, you know that, huh? It's that end. And it's been one of those things that if you never go on Johnson Road, what do you care? But if you happen to live on Johnson Road, the problem with it is it's a wood bridge and it's not rated for enough weight to say get your oil delivery. Propane tank across. So depending on your driver from what company, some will close their eyes and go across the bridge real fast, and others will say, I'm not delivering your oil. So we got a grant to do the engineering analysis of what it takes to replace this bridge, and the bridge is only from here to the wall. It's like a little bridge.
Small.
And more than likely what we'll end up doing is putting in a big box culvert for a bridge. But you do this part first, they pay for the engineering, then they tell you what they need, and then they do it. It's a similar kind of project that paid for the erosion control that's in front of the hospital. You know, that there was washouts in the park, and it took a while to do it, but we had to get an engineering assessment grant, an engineering design grant, and then a construction grant, and then it all gets done. So that's that process. The big thing that's going on, Central and Durkee Streets. We're in the middle of a $150,000 engineering project to do an assessment of the stormwater, the water and sewer. We had a big water main breakdown there middle of last week. And honestly, you dug a hole in the road. You can tell where the hole was. The whole rest of the road looks, you know, it's terrible. So we'll probably have to spend something to get us through this summer because we won't be able to do the construction. But we intentionally left it the way it was, considering the construction traffic that was going to be coming up there. And I am sure once residents are going to be up there, they will do whatever they can not to have to drive down that road and park up on Main Street or whatever they're going to do. But I'm guessing $1 million might be on the high side, but 700,000 anyway. It kind of depends on how much of the water and sewer we have to replace, or that's the lowest spot in town. So when we get, you know, really bad rains, water is shooting up out of the stormwater drains, you know, a couple of feet in the air because everything's got to get under the railroad tracks. So everything gets funneled to wherever it goes. And there's something, I think, over off of Central Street. And there's another thing off the Depot or something like that. But everything on this side of the tracks has to get under the tracks to the river. And digging under railroad tracks is expensive. So there would be a question, I think what's going to come is, well, we could fix it and it will make it this much better. Like not all the way better, but this much better. But that means redirecting some existing stormwater and digging a new pipe to the river. And that will only cost you some large amount of money. And you say, okay, well, is it worth that much money to prevent some flooding a couple time or time every couple of years? That kind of thing. So we'll know that, I expect, by the very early part of summer. And that's all town money at this point. I expect it to be all town money. Route 5 bridge by the Precision Museum is, you may recall, probably like in the fall sometime, where there were trucks out there reaching under the bridge and taking photos and doing assessments. So that's made it onto the work plan for the state. That is a town bridge, not a state bridge. So when the state originally contacted me, they said, hey, we're gonna start doing this assessment. We're probably looking at 28, 29 to actually replace the bridge, but that's what it's gonna be. And I'm like, great. So then, I expect the town will have their share of the money, right? Yes, we will. You guys just keep working. I have no idea what that's going to be. I mean, it's going to be a state control project. They're going to do the work, but there is going to be a match component. They haven't talked about what that percentage is. I assume the town's going to have to pay something. I'll say so far they have been very mindful of the historic aspects of it. It's a poured concrete arch bridge for people who love bridges. It really is pretty underneath. And you can still see the remnants of light poles that were on the railings stuff back when it was new. So the idea is to kind of replicate that. And I think there's a bridge on Tyson Road, like over by Ludlow kind of thing. It's a similar bridge and it's got lamps going down. It looks pretty. But it's one of those things that, yeah, that's what we want. And when they say, okay, well, you just contribute another 1.3 million and we'll be right at the bill like that. If you want a plain old ugly bridge, you don't have to pay anything. So that's just on the radar. So when people say that bridge is terrible, when are you going to fix it? It's in the works. And the last thing is the dry cleaner site that has been getting cleaned up or talked about getting cleaned up for good 3 years anyway, a $500,000 project that exceeded 3 million the last time I talked to them. And that is getting paid for by the insurance company of whoever owned the dry cleaner in the 1970s. And the EPA is overseeing it and meeting the contractor has to meet their criteria and they have a consultant doing all that. It's about done. If you go over there, it looks like a gravel lot. They still have to even it all out. It will be contamination free. So it'll be usable for anything the community wants to, kind of as a holding place. We just wanted it to be useful as a parking lot. The American Precision Museum has spent a couple of $1 million and continue to spend money to renovate their second floor into learning space with the idea to get more engaged with the school systems to provide hands-on learning for manufacturing. And if that happens, it's not like they need that for parking. It's convenient, but the town hall isn't that far away for a bus to go sit in the town hall or the school parking lot for that matter. But for right now, we just want it to be accessible if the museum has events for overflow parking. But if somebody comes along and says, I'm going to build 8 apartments there, that could happen too. So it's a lot. It's those things that kind of go on in the background and they're not particularly, exciting. I mean, I think that the crosswalk thing is something that I get a lot of compliments about, but there's, we'll say 1 million, 1,000,001, 1,000,005, 1,000,002, 1,000,005, probably another 5. So somewhere around $2 million worth of work that's going on right there. And right now, maybe half, probably less, is committed town funds. So that's good.
Thank God for grants.
Okay, that's it for me.
All right, so I think next up is to sign orders. Oh, yep, you know what? Because we have a lot to sign today, let's do public comments for items on the agenda. Janet?
Really excited to come back up here and sit next to you again.
Me too.
So Shannon Smith, Windsor resident. I just wanted to just say that the reason that I have been so passionate about this, and it may seem that I'm just repeating myself and harping on things, and just to say, I might cry. And also, I don't have much experience speaking in front of a camera or like to a group, so very nervous every time I come up here. I will probably stutter. But the reason that I am so incredibly passionate about this is not just because everybody has been impacted by domestic violence, if not ourselves, then our families, our friends. But I have volunteered and worked professionally within a crisis organization for 6 years. I'm no longer doing it. I stopped recently, but like that was my job. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, the majority of which never engage with law enforcement, because they don't want that. Like typically it's somebody that they love and they like, yeah. So I have, but then I specifically moved into being the coordinator for a program that worked on trying to improve the relationship for survivors when they are interacting with law enforcement, and working specifically with law enforcement agencies, doing training, specifically working with the state's attorney's office so I am knowledgeable. I'm not an expert because there's always more to know, but I am so incredibly knowledgeable about this, and I understand how bad it is sometimes. So that is why I have just been so vocal about this and so important. I just wanted to say that I am coming from a place of professional and life experience, and yeah, I just wanted to get that out there as I'm speaking and I'm stuttering, and I didn't want to end with the energy that I ended with last time. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah.
Hello, Mara Hershey. Just to bring it back around to the boring process stuff. I reached out to Trevor Whipple, who Tom mentioned he consulted with, served as a police officer in Vermont for 38 years and has spent the past 6 years as a consultant with BLCT. In that role, he assisted 23 municipalities in hiring a new chief of police, and he provided me with best practices guide produced by the Vermont Department of Public Safety. His core recommendation was clear: a robust and open recruitment process that includes a hiring panel representing the community. Based on what I saw throughout this process and what we heard in Tom's PR effort, not a single piece of Trevor's best practices seems to have been followed. And it's called best practice for a reason, and it's because it results in the best possible outcome based on the experience of experts. Trevor directed me to South Burlington's current search for a new chief of police that just started today. When I looked it up, the difference was pretty striking. They have a website with a dedicated page outlining a detailed recruitment plan, including partnering with an external consulting firm, holding listening sessions with the community and stakeholder groups, advertising the position, and screening and interviewing a range of applicants. Under this model, the city manager still makes the final hiring decision, but the process allows for input and transparency. Compare that to what happened here, a closed door process involving only the current department head, which immediately sows distrust and sets the new chief up for failure. Tom, you just lied in that Windsor on Air video when you said there was select board involvement from the beginning. Then there wasn't, which is why the candidate's name was leaked. And just to reiterate, a member of the select board felt so disenfranchised by your process that they felt the need to breach confidentiality. And as Trevor's best practice recommendations put it, assembling a selection committee and designing a process that is regarded as fair, transparent, and inclusive is as important as who is eventually selected. If the process is regarded as unjust, it sets the incoming chief up for unnecessary and sometimes insurmountable challenges. And as a member of this community, I regarded this process as unjust. And just because it could be handled that way doesn't mean that it should. And what happened here wasn't best practice, it wasn't equal opportunity, and it wasn't transparent. And I think we can and should do better.
I'd like to respond, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I read the same thing, Maura, and the two terms that struck me was Trevor's, and I quote this, "I'm not sure that there's any one right answer." And then he does talk about guiding the manager of the board and deciding what's best for the community. So I believe he has two approaches to this, and one being, he's not sure there's any one right answer. And I think
You got out of that response, then.
I'm not finished though, please. Okay. So I think that's what we've been saying is there's not any one right answer. And I would want to just, and this is not out of spite or anger, I just want to point out that the hiring that's been done recently, Christine Bourne being one example. Christine was a targeted hire, as I understand. This is my understanding. Maura, you may disagree, but I'd like to finish, please. Her body language is speaking quite loudly. Okay. So to my understanding, and I'm not privy to all the hiring information about this, but Christine Bourne was a targeted hire. I understand that she went from a principal at the Heartland Elementary School, no superintendent experience, and was hired. Larry Dower was also someone whose position was not advertised. As far as I know, again, I'm speaking from my understanding. He was a targeted hire. I do know that the school board, several years ago when Amy McMullen resigned, even though there was another candidate who'd received almost as many votes, in the election as Amy had received, the school board took it on themselves, not as a hire, I understand that difference, but, a selection was made within the walls of the, school board meeting, which totally disregarded the public input by a vote. So when I hear what I'm hearing, and I am hearing it, I'm saying there's some inconsistency in our town and how we handle appointing people in authority. So I just want to share that I don't think we're like an unusual situation right here. That is happening already, and we've been seeing it happen. So that's my response.
Can I say something on behalf of?
Yes.
I would just like to call attention to Ryan's words at the last meeting, that this is a position where somebody's going to have to take somebody's life or freedom.
Yes.
And there's much more. And I also don't think that this gentleman would have lost a school background check.
So we're talking process here. Okay.
I'm just saying that we are talking process. I'm just
We are
saying that
talking
these
process.
processes Are very different school.
Well, I don't know. When you think public input, I was concerned, very concerned that there'd been someone who'd come close to winning an election and was overlooked when decisions were made behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So that's concerning to me.
Yeah.
It's not a police chief, and I'm not trying to say it is, but we're talking process. That's what I'm focusing on.
Are there any other public comments for items not on the agenda? I don't know if it's on the radio or.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yes, and Shannon, I will give you credit for being very brave.
Yes.
It's not easy. I acknowledge that totally. But
And I
thank you for
understand where
being
you're coming
brave.
from.
Yes.
There's raised hands.
Let's see, Colin.
Yeah, can you hear me? Colin Farnsworth here.
Yes.
Yeah, just speaking on what Jeffrey just said, some inconsistencies in comparing those is that those candidates you brought up from the school that were hired were working in the school system, were familiar in the community, as opposed to an outside hire. And the school board is an appointee, not a hire, so different
Right.
setup as well.
Got that.
So
Got
I'd
that.
like to say that that comparison doesn't really parallel for me. The other thing I'd just like to say is that as select board members, your jobs are extremely tough. So God bless you. With that being said, I just do caution some of the ways that things are said on social media, and that opinions likely shouldn't be shared because you're in a position that you were voted in with that responsibility of getting voter feedback And that's not necessarily spreading hate. That is the town doing its due diligence to communicate with one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Are there any other hands? Okay. So I think now we will sign the
I would do board member comments.
board member comments
Even
and then.
adjourn and keep everything open and I'll go through all this.
Pretty see what it gets. All right. Ryan, would you like to start us out today?
No, I don't, I'm all set. I mean, I don't have any comments for once in my life.
Okay. Emma?
Nice. I really think that as a board and as a town manager and as a police chief, we should never discount how important it is to have public input and how brave you do need to be to come and criticize, not in a bad way, but criticize the hiring of a police chief. That is scary too. And I felt very nervous, like when we were talking about this and asking questions about, you know, I gotta clean my car out, like it's gross. But I really hope that we can all remember that it's like criticism and commentary and input are gonna be our strengths in this, and it's not something that input is not necessarily a bad thing. It's an uncomfortable thing. But as Dr. Brene Brown says, you need to choose discomfort over resentment. And if we have people that are just getting pissed off in their houses and not coming out and speaking to us, how are we ever going to know what's going on? I have not been on Facebook since 2016, but I don't think people are always their best selves on that website for some reason. And I really hope that everybody can remember how much our voices matter in these positions. Like, I think it's hard because I kind of think of myself as a goofy person, but I need to remember that like my voice matters and what I say to people matters, even if, you know, I'm hoping it won't impact someone deeply. Like, we're in positions that deeply matter in this community, as we are finding out, getting people in here and pissed off, which I think is a good thing. And I appreciate the space that we've had to talk about something as important as domestic violence and something as scary and serious as domestic violence. And it's nuanced and difficult, but we're doing it. So I'm done. But thank you guys very much for coming in and speaking to what you need to speak to.
Yeah, I also, are we done?
No, I was gonna say, and what we need to hear, like, we need to hear that because I have not had any experience with like dealing with the aftermath of domestic violence and having somebody that has unfortunately been in the trenches. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate input. I mean, we may differ, but you know, at least we're talking. And I think that's important.
I second what Jeffrey says. Not everybody always has to agree, but we do need to have these conversations and we need to be able to have these conversations. And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we can sit in this room and have conversations without them being completely heated and, you know, name calling, whatever it comes down to. I really respect you and I admire your strength for coming up and speaking on a tough subject. Thank you.
My turn.
Your turn,
I
Mary.
really appreciate both of you coming in tonight. I appreciate the people that hung in for this meeting tonight. I know it's hard because I've been over there too. It's not comfortable being here and on camera and speaking. I get really nervous and tongue-tied, and I write myself notes when I would have to come up here. I don't like speaking even right now. So thank you for doing that. And also, thank you for coming back into the meeting after you were upset, because I know that was really hard too. So I appreciate that you came and spoke. And I don't think you said anything that was wrong. That was what your heart said. And I think you have the right to say that, and you should be able to say what you want. So thank you for both coming and the people online.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. I am going to adjourn this meeting at 8:40.
Don't stop recording. Just, it's there if anybody asks a question, because we're all going to still be here.
We're going to sign
And
it.
this saves,
Look at that thing. Have a good night, you guys.
Good already. Okay. You can shut it off for me.
what's that? I'll shut it off. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you have to sit here and we'll let you sign some of them.
No, that's.
I will start handing them down. This is the fire warden thing. There's designations for chair and vice chair, so you have to sign on the right line.